Yeah, Spider-Man is back. I'm ready. I'm ready. Girl, I was on you. I can't something strange in my mind. Said you was crazy.
I see you. Both shoulders. Come on, get it, Nancy. Come on, panelists, let's go.
So look at here. Check the flavor of the rhythm of my flow. And when I get a chance here, let me clear my throat. Oh. Let me clear my throat. I need these monitors right here. Music in the monitors. And the whole little something like this here. My style can't be duplicated or recycled. This chick is a sick individual. Let me switch up the game. I drink that cold. I step back because I might put it on. I go deep, so deep, see the count sheet wake up from no. You know, man, show how it's when I so what I blow up, show up, ain't scared to take it out, tell a friend to take it out. Could see in a field, you got big more. Hit what I do, what I do. If you really want to do this, stop doing you know what I'm doing. Yo, shots out to them, yeah, my Thursday swerves on my can't serve. We run this. From the down, represent your home. Yeah, we run it. Wanna pull my head, break my back, put it right there, like straight in the back to back, you can't even keep track. This is back with fixing the slash. My toes and my back. I'm gonna do it, I just wanna be touched. Look at how y'all make me blush. Go around, so blush. And the shot so hard that it glitters. So many carrots that look like critters. Know we can do it all night. Take a pass to see a good one. I like to keep looking at it. We run this. Down, stop, represent you. Yeah, we run it. Yeah, we run it. Y'all want it. You get loud on the rhythm of my God, I'm a lyrics of my electricity. Girl, nobody tell me you know why you done by your destiny. Don't sexy ladies come from with us, and I can't with us, and I'm wrong with us. In the club, them want flex with us, they get next with us, they can't flex with us. Come to give my heart back, now we're playing, girl, I call the name, and it's deep for fame. It's a good girl, tell me on, till I heard them on, let's get it on, let's get it on, till I heard them on, girl, it's a good girl, tell me on, girl, close ready, don't get on the stage, girl, come on, take our anything you want, you know you must get it. Already up in stand up, easy sensor, girl, what the fuck, I'm just fuck with it. Now have a good life, girl, keep your full of mind, girl, I want to share this, you man, come let it. Now you only number one, girl, wave your hand, and them city ready, my show. Sexy ladies, come forward with us, and I can't with us, and now walk with us. See that you come to one place with us, to get next to us, and now place with us. From the name of our God, to play, girl, I call the name, and it's for playing. It's a good girl, pretty on, till I heard them all, let's get it on, let's get it on, till I heard them all, girl, it's a good girl, pretty on, come on, get it, let's get it on, put it on, stop with it, just get it, get it,
really want it, I really need it. I really want it, I really need it. When I woke up, I'm thinking about the diamonds. Gotta go
I was like, yeah. I was like, after that song, I was like, but I'm good. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so give it up for our DJ, Fairy Gods. Thank you. This is sign language for applause. If you are in the chat room or as an attendee or an audience member, and you're supposed to be on the panel, go ahead and private message me so I can bring you over to our side. As a reminder to the people on the panel or the round table that we'll be able to talk to each other, but no one in the audience will be able to talk to us. They can chat in the Zoom webinar chat room and also ask some questions in the Q&A. I'll just cue them when that is. So you can solidly applause, you can give some emoji applause in the Zoom webinar if you're in the audience right now. So once again, give that for a DJ. They are part of Ghetto Heaven Collective. Please support that collective. They're doing great work in Seattle. Or just a little snaps. Just so you all know about our process, I'm part of the Alphabet Alliance of Color. I'm part of the core team of one of the founders. And for today, it was an open invite. We invited a lot of different people. We just want to honor, this is a really hard time that a lot of people are going through. Just before 6:30, a lot of people texted me, hard times, right? Some people are just physically exhausted, and they're like, they really want to be here, so they send you their love. That's Maddie Mooney sending some love. Lucia is actually here. Leandro is actually here. And there's a few other, and I'll mention them as we go on, but I wanted to start our program. So we are being sponsored by the University of Washington Queer Commission. They're part of our alliance through the QPOCA network, the Queer People of Color Alliance at the University of Washington. And they're like giving some money to Black folks to be one. And I was like, yes, I have some Black folks that they can give money to. So thank you. And if you as a panelist don't want that money, you can donate it back to the Women of Color Solidarity Network, which is doing great work to put money directly in the hands of trans women of color. So that's my favorite organization to donate to. We're part of the We Out Here Festival. This is the second year in the row. You give it up to people who's working on the tech. They're connected to Langston Hughes, which has been based here in the Central District for a long time. And also, we got a lovely donation from Parasol Seattle with the Civic Rim Solidarity Network. So thank you to them. The way our panel will work today, I'll mention the panel after in a moment, but we're going to do a Land Acknowledgment. We are on Duwamish and Coast Salish land. I just wanted to give acknowledgement to that. That even as enslaved folks, we are now brought over to this land. We also have an original land that we are from, and we want to honor that we are on occupied territory, settler colonial territory. So we are here, and we want to honor that struggle and are in solidarity with that struggle. Right now, we would like to also take a moment of silence for the people that were lost today, as well as the folks out in the streets that are in the front line. Also, we want to honor the people that don't have the ability to be on the front line, but are supporting in different ways through emotional energy, as well as physical support in different ways, and honoring all the ways that people are in the community supporting. So if we can take a moment of silence for 30 seconds. And during this time, we would just really appreciate if you send good energy to us and a protective light. Do what you do in order to either pray or give energy to others in this moment of silence. So with that, I'm just going to bow my head and invite you to do the same. Thank you for taking that time. And as a reminder, if you're in the audience and need to be pushed over to the panelist circle of Black folks, we can do that now. For our panelists, we're going to sing the Black National Anthem, but our singer is not here right now. So I think I welcome anybody else that would like to sing. Everybody's like, Okay. I was like looking at Garfield. We were in the choir together at University of Washington State. Garfield. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to let that go. And I'm going to welcome Ebo Barton to the stage. And I'm going to spotlight you. Ebo Barton is a local artist in town. I welcome you to say more about yourself. I'm not reading everybody because everybody didn't have time to give everybody's bio, so I'm not reading bios today because that's the way the world happened today. But Ebo is now one of the staff members, also at Alphabet Alliance of Color, one of the newest staff members. But before that, Ebo has been doing so much work, to cultivate youth and young adults here in Seattle to cultivate their voice. Ebo.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Can you all hear me? I guess I'll assume that you do. Okay, great. Sorry. Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm a poet here in Seattle. I actually live in Tukwila. So just on the outside, but I do a lot of work in Seattle. Yeah, and I'm so thankful to be invited to this space. So thanks for having me. I am going to open with a poem about the complexities of the concept of freedom. But yeah, thanks for listening. When I came out to my mother, her first reaction was to comment on the volume of my voice when I said transgender, as if being myself in public was not already loud enough. But I lowered my voice. Do you reach adulthood when your parents' reactions to your unblossoming start to sound hollow like the rings in bondage? When you look into a mirror and discover you are the only and ugliest salvation your family ever inherited? Do you reach adulthood when your reflection rejects you in your second language? The language you kept safe in your back pocket is an exhausted compass that only points to the ocean. What about respect for my elders means mute myself? Are you still an adult if you just want to go home? I learned that being free isn't what everyone wants, especially if you find custody convenient. And I know you think that my gender makes you angry, that your Jesus did not die for this, but the truth is, my gender binds you to fear, uncovers your discomfort from seeing the rapture in my reach, these bare wrists. What about my freedom scares you? I named myself Igbo to worship the slave rebellion that drowned their captors, rose into the sky, turned into birds, and flew back home. Why would you deny me this worship? Why would you keep this story trapped in a book? Don't mistake me for fearless. It took me a whole lifetime to get back home, but I'm still willing to come back for you if you want to come. Jaden Smith's skirt, Billy Porter's entire wardrobe, Monroe Bergdorf's middle finger, Lizzo's exposed thong, Zaya Wade, Harriet Tubman, my beard, my pronouns, my lips blossoming on a shoulder blade. We are the efflorescence of eternal emancipation. Come with us. Before I leave, tell my mother I've uninstalled the whisper in my authentic. If you don't want to untie the knots of shame, trying to convince you compromises the wind cradling my wings, so stay in bliss. But please ask yourself, are you free? Or are you conditioned to this captivity? Whatever it is, please let me live. I just want to go home. Thank you all very much for having me.
Thank you. Give it up for Igbo. And I'm trying to change my volume, so hopefully it's good. You'll see two of me, one for volume, one for visual. We are now going to move into our roundtable. It's in the, thank you for the applause happening. So what's going to happen is we're going to be in a roundtable, and what that is in a circle is I'm going to put the names of the people. And for the folks that just joined us, it's a reminder that it was just an open invite to queer and trans Black folks in the community to come and be part of this panel. So if you're in the audience, you want to be part of this panel and identify as such, we welcome you here as well. I'm going to put the names of the people. I'm going to start us off with a question. And from there, people are invited to also ask questions. And so that it's an equal distribution of a conversation that we're having as if we're in our living rooms together. And during the time when we're talking, we appreciate appreciations, but if you can hold off on questions until the end so that we can just center the Black folks in the room. So with that, I invite folks with our first question, and I'm toggling a little bit. Our first question is, just please state your name, pronoun, organizations, unless you want to be anonymous, that's totally fine. Who would you like to invite into the circle to be present with us? And when I say that, you can talk about your ancestors, you can talk about people that have passed, you can talk about the people that are living, the people that cannot be present with us right now for whatever reason. And I'll start us off. I'll keep it short. My name is Lulu, she, her. As mentioned before, I'm part of Alphabet Alliance of Color. I'm also part of Queer the Land, my newest membership. Woo, woo. I work for KVRU as well as Seattle Girls School. I really love those organizations. I'm passionate about them. I would like to invite my mother into the circle, my father. They're having a hard time right now. My dad's from Jacksonville, Alabama. My mother's from the Philippines. I would like to invite all my ancestors that were in the ocean. I feel like the ocean is my ancestor. And I'd also like to invite Omi into the space because Omi is doing some care work and is not able to be here. I'd also like to invite Maddie Mooney, who's been doing a lot of frontline work, but cannot be here due to self-care reasons as well. And then I'm going to pass it on to Dean, and I will put the list in the circles. I'll put the list of people in the circle.
Peace, y'all. I'm Dean Jackson, and the pronouns that I use are they and them. I want to invite into this space all of the Black, queer, trans, non-binary land stewards that are doing work with our plant family and our soil family. I also want to bring, I was trying to think what plants I may want to bring into this space. I think I want to bring mugwort in. Mugwort is a plant that I've been using for a while now to support my dream work. Thank you for the invitation into this space, Lulu. And I'm gonna just be Dean Jackson in the world today. No org affiliation. I guess a earth affiliation and a mycelium affiliation.
And then just pass it on to the next person on the list.
Oh, where do I see the list?
It's in the chat. I'll pass it to Gianluca.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Gianluca. I work in low-income housing. That's kind of where all of my energy goes these days. And sorry, one second. And yeah, that's kind of what I focus my energy on. I'd like to bring in my parents. Neither of them live here. One lives in Puerto Rico, the other one lives in Canada, and so I don't get to see them a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just them. And I think the next person is Lucia Leandro.
Thank you. LL here. And I just also want to say thank you, Lulu, for organizing this. And it's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces. And I'm going to take my glasses off so you're not getting it glare. I want to bring much love to you too, Michael B. Main. Missing your face. I want to bring into the space my mom, who is an Afro-Latinx queer woman who taught me everything about organizing and leadership development. I want to bring in the Black folks on my pop side, including my pop, even though we have no relationship. And I really just want to be really grateful to the Black folks who helped raising in Boston, mainly my neighbors, my god sister Deidre, Stephen, and Sterling, and their mom Patricia, Pat, Hogan. Our family relationship just cemented a lot about what it means to show up as light-skinned African descendant folks to like folks who don't have the privileges that we have. So that was a formative part of who I am in relation to that. I'm going to pass it to Netsie.
Hi, my name is Netsie. Thanks for the intro, and thank you, Lulu, for setting this up and for the invite. I am a filmmaker, primarily documentary filmmaker. I also teach, and I think I'm going to come as just myself today. I would like to bring my ancestors from both sides of my family. I have a couple family members on my mom's side who died during the revolution in the 70s, and as well as my mom for teaching me about liberation. And on my dad's side, all of my family members that lived through apartheid and made it to me. I am a culmination of a lot of struggle. And I'm so thankful. So, yeah, I forgot if I was supposed to say anything else. But I will pass it on to Tracy.
Thank you. And thank you, Lulu, for inviting me into the space. It's really awesome to see all of you folks. I'm Tracy Stewart. I'm a mental health therapist here in Seattle, and I'm also co-director of Gathering Roots Retreat and Wellness Center, which is a vision that we've all had for a really long time, which is a Black, Indigenous, POC space for healing. We are working on trying to buy a piece of land that will serve as a retreat and wellness center for BIPOC folks, and also a farm collective for Black and Indigenous folks. So stay tuned. Right now, we're working with COVID-19 Seattle, making masks for anybody in the community who needs them. If you have a need, you can go to gatheringroots.org and order some masks for your organization. So much is happening right now. We've been involved in blessing spaces. Lulu mentioned my co-director, Omi King, who is just wonderful. We do a lot of tag teaming on healing work. And I want to bring into the circle ancestors known and unknown, for the struggle up to these struggles, and for the wisdom that they've given us to keep fighting. And also for this new unapologetically Black period, in which our activism is not dependent upon the approval of white people. So no fucks given for the discomfort of white people and how we express our disgust, our frustration, and our anger. We demand change, and it's just that simple. So I will pass it on to Constance. Thank you.
Hello. Can you all hear me? Cool. I am Constance. My pronouns are she and sometimes they. I am here representing Trans Women of Color Solidarity Network. Some of the other folks couldn't be here today, as well as an AOC member. Just to reiterate on a lot of things that were said. A lot of things are happening across the country. And so for a lot of us, this feels heavy right now. I would like to call in my future self so that I can, encourage her to remain idealistic and optimistic and strong. And may she survive all the struggles that is inevitably going to be thrown her way. So that is who I'm calling in today. And I will pass it on to Lulu.
I think I'm gonna go.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
That was like last minute. But my name is Aaron, or Fairy God's Dad, as an artist. They, them pronouns, we, us, our pronouns, if you're interested in that. I'm first and foremost like a healer and a mystic. I'm also a member of Ghetto Heaven Collective, and Ghetto Heaven Collective is just a bunch of queer Black and brown artists who ultimately want to create more spaces for healing from the impacts of systemic oppression. We do a lot of healing justice, which is really just like turning up and getting ratchet. So we throw a lot of parties, we throw balls, and always are interested in supporting anything that folks are doing in community around celebration and bringing folks together, especially healing and connecting on BIPOC communities. So I also am an equity consultant and DJ, producer, singer, all those things, artists, creative. But I think in terms of who I want to call in, just all the Orisha, all of you all as Orisha that like support you in your work, in your lives, in your destiny, and especially the Orisha that I'm working with currently. And I think the Orisha of the time, the period, Oya, just a badass warrior. And I really think that she's supporting us a lot right now. And so I really want to like conjure and call in Oya. So yeah, I'll pass it to Lou.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your patience, while our folks are getting here, and also, really sending all of our love to the people who weren't able to get here today. I mean, there are so many people that appreciate the energy of today. So I have Omi supposed to be in the audience. Tracy, just for transparent facilitation moment here, I don't see Omi in the attendees list. So there's no way for me to bring her into the panel. So she has to log on to the Zoom. And when she's in the attendees list, I can shoot her into the circle. I love this virtual circle. We're in the future already, George Jetson style, or maybe Octavia Butler style. So the next question that I'm going to pose is, we're going to ground in our hope for each other. There's been a lot of things, especially in Seattle, we center white folks and say what white folks should do versus just centering on our hope and joy. What is your deepest hope for Black folks in Seattle and beyond Seattle? And it's open on purpose. So for me, I'm just going to keep it simple and say, like, my hope for Black folks is to continue to gather and just continue to show love for Black folks. But my hope is in our deepest struggle, in our hardest conversations, in our complexity, and recognizing that some of us have class privilege, some of us have, age privilege. Some of us, like myself, have light skin privilege and all these different privileges. And remember to have those conversations, those hard conversations, so that we can reach a deeper understanding of our brutal past, so that we can love each other in the future. That is my hope. I'm going to pass it to, I forgot my list. Dean, same circle. Go for it.
I hope, I was thinking about this, trying to separate what's my hope for myself, what's my hope for Black people. And I think that my hope for myself is relevant to my hope for us right now, that we get to rest, that we get to feel what it feels like in our body to be rested. And I hope for conversation and celebration, and the realness. I appreciate Lulu talking about the privileges that we hold, to just for us to be able to have true conversations with each other, and Black joyfulness, something that I really want. Rest and joy together, whatever that looks like. And I can't say that I know that right now, but that's a hope that I have. Yeah. Are we going in the same order that we pass it? Okay. Who is it John Luca? Am I saying it right?
It is. That's exactly right.
All right. Hey.
I think my hope is simple, kind of. My hope is that Black people can just exist in the world, or get to a point where we can exist in the world without having to have every single move that we make be calculated, or having to make determinations as to whether or not we can make that move. I would just like to be able to go through a day and not have to think about, where do I sit on the train, or, can I say this thing to that one person at work, or will they take it the wrong way, or will I be seen in a certain way? To just like go through a day and then come home and be like, that was a rather uninteresting and not really emotionally rousing day. Yeah, so I think that's my hope. Yeah, so I will pass it to, I believe they said their name was LL.
Thank you for that. I think the thing that I hope for the most as like a light-skinned Afro Latinx disabled fat person, that we really dedicate time to like just like listen to our feelings and making space to breathe, because it's a lot of Black death, and there's always been a lot of Black death, but now it feels like so present. And so my hope is that people take time to really like feel the feels of that. As someone who moves in the world with a lot of privilege, where not everyone is like, oh yeah, you're part of the Black community, which I have no feelings about, makes sense. But to witness my whole life watching my people deal with so much anti-Blackness, it takes a toll, you know, and I think my response was always to fight harder and come clear and do better. But now I have kidney failure, so I'm fighting for my life literally. And most of the people who need new kidneys are Black people. So I think, you know, really taking the time to like, to heal and to like do the personal work, and to also just like rest and to take care of our bodies and our spirits, because the onslaught has been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years in the making, and it's going to continue, you know. That there are small, medium, big, extra big ways to contribute to our liberation as Black folks. So, you know, sometimes I miss seeing people in the streets on the video, and then I have to remind myself that used to be me, but now it's like there's other ways that I can contribute and support and love on my people. Oh, and I also dedicate this participation to my mom, who was never affirmed in her Blackness growing up at all, and so we have very interesting intergenerational conversations. And so just watching her really be present with what's happening right now is really beautiful to watch, and also heartbreaking. So, I'm going to pass it to Netsi.
I think I want to, reaffirm everything that folks have been saying, as well as reparations, actual reparations, and not for me, because I am an immigrant who moved here, and I have wealth privilege, you know, but actual reparations, because like if this ain't like this movement, you know, people are going to get tired, and people are going to stop showing up, and there needs to be some kind of permanence in this broken country. And I wish it wasn't money, but it has to be, because this system is broken and insidious. And safety. Like, I really wish it didn't have to be money, but yeah. What I would really love is the union of African communities and Black American communities. I'm starting to have conversations with my family for the first time where they're acknowledging that they're Black. And I just want to see that continue. And I want to see us acknowledge all of that stuff that we've got. And, you know, like, I don't know, get stronger together. So, yeah. I'm going to pass it off to Tracy.
I hope so many things. Like, where do we start? And I appreciate the wish for just to live, just to live. So what's most present for me right now is Emmanuel Ellis, Emmanuel Ellis, pardon me for saying his name incorrectly. And the dance that we have to go through when we're harmed and killed, and how we've gotten to this place that unless it's video recorded, it's not real. And I'm feeling intense rage today around that, around the city lying, around the mayor lying, around the police lying. And an accidental video proves that they were lying, and how much anguish the family is in, that they've been fighting for 3 months just to be heard. So in this moment, what I hope for is for policing as it stands right now to be completely dismantled. And for us to get to a place where policing is not overseeing the Black community, no more overseers, but policing is about public safety, and that excess of $4, $5, $6 million that police departments get can go towards community organizations that are doing the work for wellness and food sovereignty and healing and making people whole in their communities. And the police's role is to be a partner in that work, not to just harass us to protect other people's property. So that's what I'm hoping for today.
Yeah, I think so. For me, Netzi and Tracy summarized it very well. Yeah, what don't we deserve? What don't we? In my mind, Black people deserve so much happiness and safety and wealth that it's impossible to just, there's like levels of realization that just, so I wish for a removal of dependence on the systems that we currently rely on, both inside the Black community and outside of it. Yeah, and I don't want to have to survive anymore. I think a lot of the Black experience is survival. And yeah, I wish that wasn't the case. And Aaron, it is you.
I think I wish, I hope for reconciliation. I hope that white folks and non-Black folks take the harm back that they've caused. I think like when this started happening, like I felt like I didn't know, I've learned that I've intellectualized my emotion, like most people, like a lot of folks have said, is that like we've had to like survive, and we don't get to react, we don't get to be angry, we don't get to be sad. We have to continue to try to survive in the system, and I've not been able to feel emotions for a long time around what's been going on, and then like for some reason over the last few weeks I've felt it, and I feel all the harm that has been caused, and I hope and I wish that we can at some point give that harm to the people who deserve it, and that's like accountability ultimately. I hope that we in this time begin to like regenerate and feel, I guess, like grounded spiritually. I hope that our spirits and our vessels feel connected in a way that we haven't been able to in a long time. And like the last wish is more of like, not really a wish, but like something that I know is coming, that I feel in my heart, is that I think like abundance is coming for Black folks in America in a way that like our ancestors for forever have been like singing and hoping and praying and wishing and fighting, and like all of the blessings that they wished for us, for the future of us as a people, are coming. It's coming really soon. Like I see it like coming from the sky, like abundance. And so I just wish that everyone is open. Their heart is open to receiving all the blessings that their ancestors have for them, because it's coming for us.
Thank you. So this is a reminder for anybody in the audience, if you identify as Black, queer, and trans, we welcome you to come into the circle. We're just speaking, different rounds, and I'm presenting different questions. And the process was, once again, it was just a general call out to the community, not as a hierarchy, but everybody here and in the audience, they're leading in different ways. And we just want to honor that. So the next question is, what does radical mean to you? This session was called Black Radical Imagination. And oftentimes I see Black folks as radical just by existing. And that word has been hijacked in many ways by Western thought. So I was wondering, what does radical mean to you? Why are Black folks already radical? I'm going to pass it to Dean.
Yeah, I definitely had, for a long time, radical was not a word that was interesting at all to me, and didn't really resonate much with me. When I was thinking about kind of how I could connect and talk about it, I was like, it's just not a word that is much in my regular use. I do appreciate the term radical Black imagination, though. And for me, what that means a whole lot is like, it's the same quality of when I dream. And it's like that dream time made real, or taking, for me, what happens in the dream time and striving for the quality of that in the waking world, where in dream time, anything is possible. Bringing that same sort of quality and way of living into the waking world. I want to also go back to the hope question. As someone who is like a aging queer, Black queer, my hope in going into the future is that we really craft truly multi-generational space in a way that carries us, that really carries us well into the future. I'm going to pass it to Gianluca.
And I was going to remind folks also that just like Dean did, you can answer any question at any time, but you can also pose other questions in the circle to each other.
What kind of,
go ahead.
Tracy, was that question? I love that question because we are ancestors right now, and so I'm trying to live that as well as I can. Yeah. I'm done.
Oh, okay. I guess so. Existing in a white supremacist world, by default, the existence of Black people is a radical thing because we are basically the stark opposite of white supremacy and the people to whom it serves. I guess where, in reference to white people, radical really needs to mean more tangible actions like redistribution of wealth, reparations, putting their physical bodies in line in protests to protect Black folks. I think for Black people, radical is like the existence of Black people is like a baseline of radical. And I think it's at this point, I would like to see more holistic existence for Black folks. So, and I mean, people have mentioned it before, like Dean mentioned, creating multi-generational spaces, connecting more, engaging in more Black intimacy, both romantic and non-romantic, really just sort of being Black in a more holistic, collective way, which I think is already sort of indigenous to African culture and and a lot of diaspora experience. I think it's just something that we have to rediscover a bit more and work on. Sort of holistic existence is, to me, is like an ideal of like Black radicalness. But I'm also with Dean. I don't really use the term radical either. It's really just kind of a white people buzzword, but to me anyway. But yeah, that's what I would sort of say is what it means to be radical as a Black person. So I will pass it to LL.
When I think Black radical imagination, I think of like healing the places within us that allows for us to be unstoppable, right? So like of having that feeling, knowing that like while they're trying to like exterminate us, like I can do anything that I want because I have this huge ancestral portal of like experiences and cultures and protests and art that we've had since time immemorial. So you know, for me, it's just allowing the like of quieting whatever internalized messages that we've internalized around white supremacy and the impacts on that, and then allowing ourselves to really like do the daring thing. That's why I think like and there's so many examples of folks doing this, but I think one locally I think of is like Clear the Land, like is that like folks were like, we need to have a physical space, so we're gonna fundraise so we can have a physical space that we define. If that's not part of Black radical imagination, then I don't know what is. I mean, Dean, your organization and like the work that you're doing, it's like living those dreams out loud collectively, you know, and not afraid to really think big, you know, especially if it's about tending to our spirits and our bodies and our minds and the generations of trauma that we carry with us. I pass it to Lexi, your friend.
I mean, I personally love the term radical, but I come from like an organizing background. I've been organizing since I was 14. I've been in the streets, and yeah, I'm radical. I'm cool with it, you know. And I think that, you know, like being radical, you know, is sometimes just being like refusing to go with what dominant society tells us to do, you know, like especially when it comes to Blackness, and especially when it comes to queerness, and especially when it comes to just being like, I love myself. That's radical in this society. You know what I mean? And, you know, like I can remember being frustrated, like a little bit like, what's good with Seattle, because they're out in the streets and they're like, Black Lives Matters, you know, now. And, you know, because we were out here doing this work a couple of years ago, and folks were just like, I don't know if Black Lives, you know, like they were very, very, this is inconvenient for me that Black Lives Matters, and like you're inconvenient, like, you know, like it was just, and then I started looking at pictures of folks who have been doing this work since slavery, you know what I mean? Like this is a journey of people refusing to deal with the status quo, refusing to acknowledge that the police are somehow protecting us. Like this has been like day one, Black folks have been doing this work. And I'm so thankful for them. And it's that thing that's pushing us forward, right? So like now we're like, okay, like Black Lives Matter. But now like radicalism is like being like, okay, so what's up? What's good? What does that actually mean? Like, how do we move forward from this, you know? So those are my feelings about radicalism, you know? Like, I honestly think it can really truly just be about existing, especially as Black queer folks, you know, as like Black trans folks, you know, like but I'm here for it. Pro-radical, radical forever. Thanks. And I pass it, I don't know why I keep on doing this, but I'm going to pass it on to Tracy.
And I catch her pass. I don't know. Of course, the first thing that pops into my mind is Audre Lorde saying that caring for ourselves is radical. Loving ourselves is radical. Being for ourselves is radical. So I think that anything and everything that Black folks do is radical because we're so original and so fly. So when everybody's trying to copy us but don't want to be us, right? So I don't really have any care for the word radical. I mean, it's, you know, it's fine. It doesn't give me any feels or anything. What I would say, again, my mind is very present focused on the multitude of actions across the city and across the country. And, you know, people clutching their pearls about kids in the street, folks in the street looting stuff, folks in the street just protesting, whatever they're doing. And, you know, this whole thing. And the trendiness of Black Lives Matter for white people. And piggybacking off of what Netzi said, I'm looking for co-conspirator white people. If you're not a co-conspirator, I'm really not interested in knowing you. And what I need from a co-conspirator is for you to show up every day, like Karen does to a school board meeting, complaining about her kids' textbooks. So if you can get your butt out of bed or out of your house and go to school board meetings and complain about inane stupid crap, you can show up at city council and chain yourself to the desk of the mayor and demand that the city stop engaging in anti-Blackness at every single level of their existence as a city. Every contract, every RFP, all the hoops and games that Black and brown folks have to do to get the same funding that other orgs and other community members have to get. Just knock it off. Just stop. So I'm looking for policy change and no more rhetoric, actual policy change. And so white folks need to radically show up and do that shit. And I will pass it on to Constance.
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. I also agree with the first two speakers. I think the word radical is white hyperbole. I think it's like a nonsensical word that they use to kind of deter people from doing things that are good for them. I think, you know, radical is an idea that we haven't arrived at yet. So people are afraid because it's unrealistic. And we were like made to be so hard and like be realistic because dreaming is, you know, all of the things that are negatively associated with idealism and being optimistic, because that's not the world we live in, right? Because we're not actively shaping the world that we live in. But yeah, I think for Black folks, radical is like allowing Black men or Black mask of center folks to be tender and soft with themselves and also with others, right? That's a radical idea. yeah, I don't think that's actually radical. I think it's just resistance, right? I think we're resisting something, and it's being called radical. I'm also really surprised the PA I'm in DFW, and I'm surprised the PA system hasn't interrupted me yet. So, yeah, that's my take on it. And Aaron, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, I think for me, radical, I think personally, I've always been, in organizations around non-Black people considered to be like radical. And I've always seen myself as imaginative. So like going back to what folks said is like, I think radical is something that has been arrived at a lot, like pretty much it is our dreams. And like, ultimately this reality is a collection of ideas and dreams and hopes that have been manifested. Everything we see before us has been like a reality that has been manifested through someone's radical imagination, whether that be someone who like is oppressive or someone who doesn't understand the power that they hold or doesn't give a fuck, that doesn't care about folks who've been impacted by their power. So I think that like I'm imaginative. I think that radical ideas and like imagination go hand in hand, and that we are always constructing our reality. And it's really important to, I guess, like be bold in that, in the way that we show up in community. But I think for me personally, what I've learned about being radical lately is like being real with myself. It's the reality that like I have been harmed, that like within my body lies like centuries and centuries of pain and harm. And I have to be doing that work. Like, I think before us, like our ancestors worked really hard. And like someone said, like Nettie said, it's been a journey. Like we are a part of this journey. And we have now the opportunity to be healing in a way that our ancestors always hoped. Like that quote says, like, we're our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I think that like they dreamt of healing, like not just like surviving, but to actually like unpack and unlearn and to show up differently. And for me right now, that's what radical is. It's like really allowing myself to be real with the fact that I'm in pain and not taking on too much of a burden when it feels like I'm tired. Like, I feel like a lot of us are tired, and like, I appreciate like, who said some folks are like, I'm not going to be able to like join this space because of self-care needs. I think that in this movement where we are right now, it's so important to be resting. Like that is radical. To sleep and to just not do anything is a radical thought, because like our survival and our resilience is radical. And I think on an organizational level, radical really is like, it is like doing the healing work. Like, I think that oftentimes like we're forging our path with fire right now. And I think that like as an alchemist, I think about all the elements that you need to work with to get something done. And like definitely like after fire comes water for me. And I think that that's what's coming for our community is a lot of like emotional healing. And like in an organizational level, like if you work for nonprofits or any company or any group of people who want to do this work for Black and Brown, especially for Black community and Black liberation, they have to be healing too. Like, I think centering Black folks and radical imagination looks like us, like leading the way in what it looks like to be healing, and then other folks following our lead and actually listening to us when it comes to like what it means for us to all just be like unpacking and unlearning and moving forward. Because I think that is so radical for people to like, and I think like for this to be an act of love, like even when we burn shit down and if we have to kill some white folks, wherever the fuck happens, like that's love. Like that is radical. You know, that it is multidimensional, that is very important and valid, and that it is complex, that it'll be complex, and we are complex. And I'll pass it to Chris.
Hi, everyone. My pronouns are they, them. I just love the conversation of other Black people who are queer or trans or non-binary talking about like what's going on in the world and how that impacts us. So it's nice to be connected. I believe in all what everyone says. So thank you.
Let's see. I don't know if Nikki is around or if Nikki was booted out. Okay, so Nikki's not on this side anymore. Hopefully, Nikki will be coming back soon. So just to summarize what some people had said, it was like holistic existence, healing places in us to be unstoppable, ancestral portals, since before time, quiet internalized messages, refusing, love self, since slavery just being caring for self, loving self, being for the self. So original, so fly. People try to copy us, but they can't be us. Radical is an idea we haven't arrived at yet. To be soft and tender is also radical. Not radical, just resistant. Imagination. We have been harmed. I have been harmed. Part of this journey are the ancestors' wildest hopes and dreams. Beyond survival and pain, radical is healing, the path of fire, and so much more. I'm going to pose the next question, and it is, how is now a critical moment for us? How is it connected to history? What do you think will be created from this moment? What are the lessons so far? And I will pass so we can hear other people's voices. And I'll post it in the chat. There you go. On to you, Dean.
Cool. So I should say, I am so in the beginning of this moment that it feels like, for me at least, challenging. It feels challenging to try and kind of summarize the moment. But I will say this feels like a critical moment to me because somehow at some sort of global scale, non-Black people seem to be having an inkling that we are human. And the impacts around the recognition word that we are human and that it somehow has escaped them until this moment. Where that can lead for non-Black people. For Black people, I think this is a critical moment for a wealth redistribution to happen. And the lessons so far, I don't know what will be created from this moment. I think that we're seeing like we're seeing a new world be birthed, and so it's real. Feels like a baby being born. We can have hopes and dreams, but I don't know what is going to be created outside of a new life or a new way of being. And then lessons. I want us to remember the things that we already know. And I think a whole lot about the ways that living in my body and having some access to disability justice community and seeing, and I don't have a whole thought wrapped around this to eloquently wrap this up, so I'll try and communicate this as best I can, but seeing the ways that accommodation can happen and that caretaking can happen, that come to us real clearly from the decades and decades of work of disability justice community having to do that to survive, that a lesson that we can learn is to not forget that, I guess, to honor that and to center that. And I want to keep on this conversation because this is like at the beginning of this is like asking parents what they want created from this moment. can have some hopes and dreams, but the baby's gonna grow how it grows. We can nurture, but there's also some nature there. So I feel happy for myself being like hella Taurus, that I'm also somehow in a place of getting to be flexible and expansive and contractive, because like this is a moment that for me at least has been like, gotta just go with it. Yeah, I'll pass it on. Gianluca?
Yeah, I think at least one of the main takeaways I'll start with is in this moment, we have the sheer amount of like historical record that's being generated that we didn't have previously, that can sort of pretty quickly disseminate across the planet, I think is what's driving what Dean had mentioned. Back in 1921, someone in the United Kingdom wasn't going to hear anything about, the Tulsa bombing of Tulsa, Oklahoma, because they wouldn't have had access to that sort of content through given the media. And so I'm hoping that the lessons learned is that we can sort of look back to the sheer amounts of video and content produced on Twitter and sort of take that to heart, and sort of piece together how this is sort of more of the same thing, but now it's in like IMAX high definition with the technology we have. I'm also hoping that given the fact that this has happened during a global pandemic when the economy was shut down, so white people couldn't use the excuse of like the Super Bowl or the 24-hour news cycle to be able to ignore this, that strategies and tactics that are developing right now can sort of translate into future movements. I also hope that we can push and people who are capable in whatever space they're in can push for changes that can use this opportunity to push for substantive changes. So like the example I'm thinking of is in my own job, we have a contract that everybody hates with the police department. And the only reason we have this contract is because about 10 or 12 years ago, they struck this contract with the police department because flat out the police wouldn't show up. I work in low-income housing, and the police wouldn't show up to poor low-income neighborhoods when they were called. And so they essentially struck up this contract and pay money every year so that the police will actually do their jobs. Well, of course, with this sort of happening, we've all gotten together and we were on a phone call to be like, this is the time to nix this bullshit contract, because there is no reason why we are paying police who don't even do their jobs to begin with to even try and do their jobs. And so just using that sort of strategically to be like, now is the time to look at this thing that we all hate. Maybe we disconnect from this and utilize that, the money we're spending on this to develop and fund our own internal, community safety and accountability programs. So that's sort of the lesson I think is sort of using this in a really strategic way to get some sort of good out of it, but also just, I think just really utilizing the sheer historical record that's being generated right now. So I will pass that to LL.
There was something you said that made me think about, sorry, I'm trying to read the question. I think for me, whose primary role right now in my life is to like recover from a lot of medical issues that I've been dealing with. But I think we're in a critical moment where like, I feel like not just like organizers, like again, like everyday folks being like, we're really, really tired of having our people murdered. And I think that has been a powerful thing to witness, even if it's just on social media or the internet, but just to see like, just like so many folks who may not have joined like movement organizing or just like being in their communities doing stuff, that folks are just like really fed up with like, and have been. But now, since it's happening everywhere, right? Obviously the Black Death has been forever and has been everywhere, but now I think people are like, you know what? I can't, I have to do something, you know? Which doesn't mean that people haven't been doing stuff since before, because like we always have to do things if we want to do anything for ourselves and our communities and our people. But I think now, like, it just seems like there's such a critical moment where people are like, yeah, like I have to participate in some political space or thing in my community or wherever, because it's just like, it's too much. It's always been too much, but now it seems like the stronger the police become and the military become, people are like, nah, like this is, you know. And so I think it's been beautiful to watch, you know, like everyday folks just be like, nah, like, no. So. Oh, so pass it to Nancy.
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what people have said. Also, I haven't just lived in the United States. I grew up in England, and it is really great to see not just solidarity protests, but also like, what's good, British police? You know, like y'all are oppressive and racist too. Just because y'all don't have guns on you at all times doesn't mean you're not oppressive. You know, France, the racism of, And you know, I get to like this is the thing about the way that America works, is that for better or worse, there's a huge spotlight here, right? And the movements like for freedom in Africa were absolutely inspired by the civil rights struggles here, you know? So much of what happened in South Africa was inspired by what was happening in America. And I'm so excited for what that means, because, yeah, like we theoretically got rid of apartheid, but that's just in name only. Like I am from an apartheid country still. And like we don't own any of the things that actually make money. Those diamonds, we don't own those. Those are still owned by our oppressors. And all that artwork in all of these museums, we didn't do that. We didn't give that to other people. Like those were looted from us. And I think people are starting to have these conversations, you know, where it's like, no, I want that stuff back. You know, like we are not here for it, you know? And I'm excited for the subsequent movements across the world. I love seeing it in South America. I love seeing it. God, I'm just here for worldwide, like freedom from bondage, but specifically with Black folks. And I'm also here for these conversations we're starting to have about what the actual liberation of Black folks looks like, specifically as it relates to trans folks, specifically trans women, like Black trans women. Like we are not free unless we are all free. And I'm really excited that we're having that conversation, because it's not, oh, we're watering down the movement because we're talking about this. This is the movement. Like, so I'm ready. I'm here for it. And yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Tracy.
Wow. Thanks, everyone. I have nothing. There's nothing left. it's a critical moment because so many people are participating. Whether that is going to mean lasting change, who knows? Who knows? But for us, again, I appreciate the unapologetically sick and tired Fannie Lou Hamer stance that most folks are taking. Like, no. So I think if anything, what I don't know. I'm sorry for stammering. I just have so many things. One of the things that I'm noticing about this moment is the intergenerational upheaval. And I wonder if I can say this. Okay, I'm just going to be authentic and I'm going to piss some folks off. Apologies ahead of time, but here it comes. I have noticed in my adult life, and I'm 51, I've noticed that the role that the NAACP and the Urban League used to have is gone. And I'm waiting for them to show up. I'm waiting for the elders of the movement to work with middle-aged folks in the movement and to mentor the youth who are out there who don't know what they're doing. They're just marching. God bless them. They're all over the place. And I've been getting calls for a week from young people like, what do we do? We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to go over there. And how come so-and-so didn't call? I'm like, dude, just do your thing. Just do it. It'll coalesce at some point. Maybe it won't. But the days of having a single leader for anything have been dead for a really, really, really long time. There is no need to make a movement that makes white people comfortable. The movement has to be about Marcus Garvey, not Booker T. We are not Booker T in this movement. We are Marcus Garvey in this movement, right? We are Franz Fanon in this movement. You know, we are Harriet all the fucking way in this movement. And we're going to bring brothers and sisters along who aren't ready to go, but we're going. It's happening. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm in a meeting. See, I got kids, whatever. It's always mom time, right? Anywho, so what I appreciate about this moment is the influx of youth wanting their voices to be heard, demanding to be at the table, really pushing for us to help them learn what to do. And I strongly believe that even if we don't totally agree with what they're doing, we have to guide them. How else do folks, how did we learn how to be activists? Like other people said, yo, your slip's showing. You might want to try this, right? That's our job. What kind of ancestor do we want to be? And so how about we not repeat any of the stuff that we all complained about as we were coming up as activists about elders not hearing us, mentoring us, not taking us seriously. The youth are so on it. They are like so much better than we were. Like they know all the things. They know the peoples. They know the history. They are raging and they are itching to lead each other in coalition away from this garbage. So I think if anything in this moment, everybody who's listening should be looking at youth and reaching out to the youth who are trying to take over the chop and trying to hold that space for Black and brown folks. We as elders in the community, even if you're only in your 30s, right now you are an elder in this community, right? So reach out to youth and support them. Give them input. If you see them doing something in the street that doesn't look right, that's what aunties and uncles do, right? We pull folks aside and say, hey, you're carrying my name. You can't be acting like that out in the street, y'all, right? So we need to do that. That's to me a big thing in this moment. I'll stop rambling now. Thank you. Do I pass it? Who I pass? Constance. What?
Hey yo. So yeah, I'm gonna hop right where Netsi left off. I think for me, there is a disconnect. I think I represent being a Black trans woman first, because there's so many layers there, right? And so I think this moment is more critical for Black trans women to lay a foundation, economically, being integrated socially. I think there's a larger acceptance happening of trans women, of trans sex workers. And so like, it's really important for us to use this moment to just like progress and do all the things that we could have did 5-10 years ago. Yeah, I think what's different, like, I don't know who said it, but like someone was saying, I think seeing everyone engaging in that, I think globalism kind of catapulted anti-Blackness. I think there's very few places in the world where you can go and not experience anti-Blackness. And so I think also using globalism as a way to attack it and resist anti-Black racism is something that we also need to think of. When you think of racism as a Black American, you just think of America, right? You think of this country that did all of these horrible things, but it's well beyond America. So yeah. And Aaron.
I agree with all the things that everyone is saying and learning a lot. And like, just want to name that, like, in this moment, I've been learning that, like I used to, like, when I first started doing stuff in Seattle, like, oh, I'm a community organizer. And I've learned, like, through this movement that, like, I'm not an organizer. Like, organizers do some real ass work that I don't do. I'm a community builder. So I've really, like, shifted that and learned that. But I also do want to be an organizer and an activist, especially as it pertains to connecting, like, spirituality with, like, liberation and, like, equity and our direct action. I feel like that's really important. So I'm always, like, looking for folks to support me and figuring out how to do that. Like, I grew up having to deal with the system. Like, I didn't grow up in any communities having any folks in my life, in my community, that were activists at all. Like, this is my first time actually seeing true activism. So I'm really grateful for that. But I do think that, like, this is, like, a critical moment to connect with our first selves in Indigenous ways. Like, as I worked on, like, being, like, an equity, like, focusing on equity for such a long time, it led me to this, like, place of spirituality, of, like, Indigenous or Afro-Indigenous tradition. Because ultimately, like, in order to move past this, like, oppressive capitalist system and colonization, which is the main issue, like, the opposite of colonization is Indigenous. And so it's, like, really a call. And I feel like this call honestly came more from, like, the earth than it is just, like, it's, like, deeper than just, like, social justice. I feel like it is about social justice because we need to be in just relationship with community and just relationships with ourselves and our own bodies. But we most importantly need to be in just relationship with the earth. And so this is a call for us to, like, learn the ways of being in just relationship with land and the earth, so that we can ultimately, like, be healing, like, truly, and, like, have some sustainable change on our planet and in our existence as a species. So I think that, like, I'm like a Gemini moon, so I always think like way up in the stars or whatever. And so like the big picture for me is like the end goal is us like moving away from colonization and back to indigenous ways of being. And I think that's really scary, like, because that pretty much is what a lot of folks have been saying for a while is the apocalypse, is the end of the world. Like the end of the world that the white man has made is over. Like we're coming to an end of that world, of that idea. It no longer serves us. The earth doesn't believe in it and wants it gone. So it's a time for us to really do that. And I think that's really critical and crucial to call into the space, because I think a lot of folks kind of like talk about the social justice piece and our relationship with each other, but not our relationship with land. And that's a really big part of this movement at some point. I think that at a basic level, we're creating like a lot of depth for what the Black Lives Matter mean. Like someone said, is like, it's really us defining what liberation looks like for us and setting boundaries in a way that I don't think I've never seen happen at this magnitude. Like, organizations are like scrambling to figure out how to like give people days off and like to accommodate folks' needs and to like address the harm that they're causing. Well, some folks are, and I think that is really beautiful. And like, I think I've seen Black folks across spectrum, across identity, start to like set boundaries and say like, I no longer, like people saying like, I no longer accept this. And like, that's the really beautiful thing that's coming out of this. I think a lesson in this is just like learning that we all have different roles in it. I think that there's sometimes that need of, like, everyone is on the front lines right now. And so people are like, we all got to be protesting. Like we all have to be doing this direct action in that way and disruptors in that way. But like, there is a really big need for a lot of different things in this movement. And so like, whether like you're just resting in this movement, like if this whole entire time, like while everything is burning, you're just at home watching Netflix as a Black person, like thank you for adding to the movement and surviving and maintaining yourself. Like if you're the person who is checking on your one friend when all your other friends ain't doing too great because that one friend is someone you feel like you have capacity to support, you're adding to the movement. If you're on the front lines, if you're cooking dinner for some random person, if you just cussed out a white person, you added to the movement. Like just remembering that the movement is really complex and it is all us ultimately like doing what is in our hearts and what is in our spirits to be doing. And I think that's really important to learn because I think that, we haven't been able to define that like set that level of liberation in a long time, and to define in our hearts who we want to be in community. And that's a really big thing we're learning. I also think it's really important to be like unpacking our identities in this time and censoring folks furthest from justice. Like there's not to say there's like, there's like someone who was like, you won the oppression Olympics. It's more so that like folks are furthest from justice in certain ways. And as we build this new world, if we're not checking our identities, it's going to be really harmful. We're perpetuating these systems like the CHOP, the Chaz, whatever the fuck, like it's like an anarchist zone. It has shit to do with Black people at this point because there was just a bunch of people being like, honestly, I just wanted to like not have cops in a place. Like that's all I was here for. I never really thought about shit deeper than that. And so I think that's what we have to start to be thinking about. Like all of us have to be doing that work. Like what is deeper? What is the real thing? Like how are we censoring Black trans women in this movement who are furthest from justice in the Black community? Like how is the Black community checking in on themselves and each other and like checking power within our fucking community? And I think that's what's really I'm worried about is I don't see a lot of like non-queer folks in Black community coming in this space to learn shit from us. Like, queer Black folks have always been the center and like the leaders in certain ways and carrying so much shit while non-queer Black folks do different things. And I think this is a moment where we need to learn that there is that solidarity that has to happen in our community and then between our communities and other non-Black people of color, and especially Black and Indigenous communities and Native American communities. That's so important right now, is these connections that we haven't ever really had because of oppression. I think that that's a hopeful moment that we're starting to create. And I will pass it to Chris.
Hi, everyone. I've heard the question. I appreciate the energy of the Black Lives Matter movement, especially in the 2020 season. It seems like everyone's just like out every single day. But it's also super hard being Black because we're like Black and queer and trans like 24/7, like all of the time. And it's still like injustice every day. I also like watched a video yesterday about what's happening in the Capitol Hill areas on Chaz about like there was this like one white person carrying the American flag in like two Black people. One was like a non-binary person, other one was like one female identified, and then like one of the person was like trying to take out the flag and like try to rip it off, and like a lot of like white people around like just standing there doing nothing with like, and then like the people who are Black were yelling like white silence equals violence. So it's like super rough, like Black people like having to experience the discrimination, especially within a movement that's like supposed to be centered on us, but we're still like facing violence and injustice within our own Black Lives Matter movement. So it's like super tough, like all these different intersections at play and trying to like breathe and like do the justice work, but then also seeing like the divisions that divide us constantly. It's really sad.
Marlon. Sorry, Marlon.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay. I echo what Aaron said. Aaron said everything that I was going to say. As it pertains to the topic, this time it's happening for a reason. It is about Black lives that are being lost at the hands of people who are supposedly sworn to protect us. And it is also about how do we all participate in creating this new normal. We're in the midst of a pandemic that has its own impact, drastically in our community, as well as we have, even in the midst of a pandemic, police officers who are taking our lives. And now this most recent thing of two hangings in California of two Black young men. We have, the killing of trans women that is not getting the press. The killing of a Black trans man that's not getting press. And so, it's reached a boiling point where, people just cannot be silent anymore. And as Aaron shared, how are we, centering our most impacted people among us? Our most impacted people are trans folks who are the furthest from justice. That is huge, especially for cis men like myself and others. And then we go, up this ridiculous hierarchy that it shouldn't be, but in identities, it's on all of us, to protect our most impacted, So just like we're asking white folks to put their bodies on the line for Black folks, as a cis man, I have to be willing to put my body on the line for my trans family. It is just that important to us to take care of ourselves. I'm just echoing you, Aaron, if you didn't hear what I said, because you said everything that I wanted to say. In this time, we have to do something different than what we've done previously. We as a Black community have got to come together and unite. And there are so many different organizations that represent Black lives. And like Aaron said, because you said everything, we all do it differently. As a board member of the local Black Lives Matter Seattle King County chapter, there's a particular way that we work to save Black lives and uplift and improve Black lives. Other people do it differently. But the fact that we're all focused on the same thing, which is Black lives, how do we bring that together? How do we be a collective together and bring this power that we have? Because we have it. We have a power, not only just in our voice and how we show up. We have financial power. We can build wealth with each other, but we have to be united. We have to address trust, the mistrust that has evolved and just run rampant in our community, especially with us, especially around money. We have to fix it because that's our only way through this. And we have been without it for so long that it is literally the missing link. It's not about knowledge. We are the smartest people on the planet. We're the originals. We already know that, but what are we going to do differently now than we haven't done before? There are, when we look at our history, there's lessons from our history. What worked well during the civil rights movement? What didn't work well? What worked well with the Black Panthers? What didn't work well? How do we apply those lessons to what's going on now? The things that were successful, and be creative to create new ways in which we take care of each other. We are looking and striving towards something we've never seen before, and it requires us to tap into our creativity. So that is really the call: is how do we come together in a new way? How do we heal the harm and hurt that has happened, even if we weren't there? I've only lived in Seattle 12 years, and I stepped into hurt that happened way before I got here. But how do we take this time now to really heal that so that we can stand together, even when we don't agree on everything? Because we don't. That's very clear. People have made it very clear. They have gone very public about their disagreement with some of us. But how do we take this opportunity now to really come together and unite and move everything that we need together? How do we raise all ships, together? And I think it's possible, but we have to do something different. And yeah.
Thank you, Marlon. And Marlon, do you want to say anything about yourself? Because I know you had to leave and come back.
Oh, say what do I want to say?
We're saying your name and anybody you want to invite into the space, even though we're soon to be closing out the circle.
Oh, okay. My name is Marlon Brown. I go by he, him, his. I do a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats. By work, I'm a racial equity consultant. So I work with organizations and institutions to understand how to treat Black and Brown people better. That is the focus of the work, and helping people understand what does it look like day to day to become anti-racist. So it's a long journey. Many of the people that I work with engage in 2 to 3 year commitments to this work, because you can't just go take a class, check a box, and it's done. It takes a whole lot more work there. I work to build up leaders. If they are in leadership roles but are not sure how to do this work, I do that. I host a radio show, soon to be a couple radio shows, and I'm a business owner. I'm a gospel singer. I host a gospel radio show. I do a lot of things, so I would be here all day. But I stand on the shoulders of my grandmother, Bessie Mae Ingram, who taught me to be all that I can be, who told me that I could be anything that I want to be. And if I want to change my mind and go in a different direction, that it's okay to do that. And she instilled in me, along with my mom, this will for justice. And I bring them into the room as I speak. Yeah.
Thank you, Marlon. So I was going to read, we're going to close out pretty soon. We have a little bit of time because there's a few folks that were not able to make it. We're going to close out with a poem. This is from Afrofuturism and Black Spring, Adrienne Marie Brown. It's in a book called Emergent Strategy, where a lot of my imaginings have come from. We tend to think and speak of Afrofuturism as the far off future, something beyond our current comprehension and planet. Yes, and this is, the Star Wars ship, just in case people were wondering. Juneteenth is happening in the Star Wars ship, the Millennium Falcon. But now is the only moment, and we hope things will be different in the next now. And I must admit, I'm excited about the near future. What are we about to do after this winter of discontent, or spring of discontent? We say Black Lives Matter, an Afrofuturistic assertion because we see something other than the normative truth of this place. We see something that is not here. We see the future cast over this devastating present moment. We see and we believe, we know, and we bend the world to assert and embody that Black Lives Matter. She goes on to talk about us being seeds and planting seeds. So the last question is, what would you like to dream forward? What do you imagine for present or future ancestors? What seeds do you want to plant now? I'm going to pass it to Dean.
Yeah. I think about, I'm all that happens when you put your hands into the earth, and the access to our ancestral past, present, and future. So when I think about like my wildest dreams right now, they're looking like queer, Black, queer, trans, non-binary land projects, land work, land stewardship, that is in deep community with folks indigenous to these lands, or at least on this continent, the lands of the indigenous people. Like my wildest dream is this like real relational land stewardship that happens in the kind of generational healing that happens when we are on the land and of the land and with the land on our own terms and in our own ways. When we know how to be in relation to the land in a way that we can hear the plants again, we can be communicating with all life, the rocks, the pebbles, the water. That's like my wildest dream, is that's just the norm, that's the norm for us. Because if that was a norm, there'd be we'd be past the moment of trauma and the moment of wounds and wounded. So that's where I want to live into that dream, or to do the work that can help us get there.
And also, Dean, someone reminded me, if people want to answer the question, what kind of ancestor would you like to be? I think you answered a little bit of that. Yeah, I mean, I think of myself as like, I'm already an ancestor right now, and so the way that I try and live is to my fullest actualization, and knowing that, particularly as a Black non-binary person, that the medicine that I hold and that we hold is like the way that I can, the ancestor that I want to be is like living into that medicine as fully as I can. Because that's the world needs us right now. Like, I don't know if I could say never before, but I just know like we're so needed right now. And so doing what I can to live into my fullest self. Okay, I pass it to Gianluca. Oh, is that a dog that you got there?
It is. She jumped into my lap. This is my dog, whose name is Roach. Let me read this question again. I guess what I'd like to dream forward is, as someone who is, I don't know, I guess I'm just really trying to work to, I fully intend to have children and adopt children and just have like lots of kids. So I guess for me it's just like dreaming of, dreaming of a world where, you know, my kids can grow up and like, I don't have any yet, but and just like not have to deal with the shit that I had to deal with and that other Black folks had to deal with. Yeah, I guess that's just sort of like a baby step of a dream. And I guess, and just like thinking about, you know, just people, you know, Black people, regardless of being trans or disabled or can sort of move about the world, you know, and just, you know, with a general baseline of safety and security and protection. And so I guess I also, yeah, that's just where I'll leave that. Just, you know, a world where Black people can just sleep at night. Yeah, so that's what I will say, and I will pass it to LL.
Thank you for ending on that note, Shauna, because I think the thing that is most present for me right now, like, is to remember, like, to sleep and to eat and to drink water and to take time away from all the noise, you know? And so that's what I hope for folks in the future, to really, like, that part of the freedom that we get to work towards is to really just invest in our mind, body, spirits, you know, because otherwise, if we don't do that, like, look how many protests and how much organizing we've done, you know, I've done a lot of it, and because I chose to neglect my kidneys and other health stuff, I'm in the fight of my life, you know, and so I think, like, that's really real, that it could be anyone, you know, and it is us. Like, sleep, eat, rest, and a space to really reflect on what you're feeling, and hopefully finding community to do that with, because just witnessing our whole lives of how much anti-Blackness we experience and our people experience is so deeply traumatic. And if we don't talk about it or hold space to cry about it, to deal with it, and to, like, do whatever we need to do, like, it's just gonna become a poison in our bodies, you know? So.
Is it me now? All right. I can't hear you. I think you're on mute still. Okay.
I've done this at least twice, and I still was like, who do I call? Hi, by the way, good to see you. But anyway, thank you.
And nice to see you too. I know that I can feel the trauma that I've inherited from both sides of my family, like, coursing through my veins. And I think, like, a future where, you know, generations, Black folks, Indigenous folks, inherit, you know, our strength, our eyes, our mouths, our lips, our all of these things that make us, you know, who we are, and not the trauma, you know. Like, that would just be so profound. I'm so excited for that. I follow my father's, our tribe faith, and it's based on ancestors specifically. being our, for better lack of a better word, like our angels, you know, and they send us dreams and they guide us, and, you know, we don't necessarily pass away. We just simply become ancestors for our family. And, you know, for us queer folks, I mean, I got a chosen family too. And yeah, I just want to be the best ancestor I can be. And definitely still be on some like burn this shit down type. Like I definitely want to be a burn this shit down kind of ancestor. But hopefully we won't have to, you know? And finally, like, you know, at some point in organizing, we came to this understanding that community is, you know, is like the revolution, you know, is like being like in community with each other. And I just want to see that. Yeah. I just want to be in community with folks. I just want to see your faces. I miss your faces so much. I miss like intimacy, you know, and I'm so excited to just be in community with y'all. Like, I'm excited for joy. I'm excited for, I guess my future ancestors. I don't know what the word is. The future generations. I just am excited for joy. I'm excited for creativity. I'm excited for not having to survive anymore, you know. I'm excited for thriving. Yep. And I'm going to pass it to Jesus Christ. Tracy. Yes, Tracy.
Thanks. What kind of ancestor I want to be is messy and flawed, because I'm messy and flawed. But I still show up and I still try. And I'm not trying to be anybody's perfect, because that shit ain't gonna happen. So I want to always try to show up as authentic as I possibly can. In how I communicate, and in being held accountable, in pushing back when the accountability is false and it's more of a call out culture dumbness versus, hey, when you did this, it harmed me in this way, right? Do you know what I mean? I want to be in community with everybody. I get criticized for that a lot, and I don't really care because I want to be in community with everybody. And what I hope for the future is selfish, not selfish. I'm hoping that gathering roots can come to fruition so that everybody, Black and brown folks, have a place of respite to get the fuck out of the city, away from the white supremacy, and have a beautiful place to just come and hang out. And if you want to garden, you can garden. If you want to meditate, you meditate. And all of you wonderful teachers, healers, learners, participants in community can come and teach there. And that the cost will be so low that folks can come, because we're going to try to get grants. And if folks can't come, they can still come, right? I just want a place where people can be. You don't got to bring any masks, nothing. You just, well, I mean, for COVID, yeah, but but I mean, societal masks. I want to be in coalition in the community so we can create a place for people to be. And for that to be given to the younger generation when we all move on, pass on, or whatever. But this little space, this little 40 acres and mule goes to the next generation of healers, and it's there for them, right? So that's what I hope for. Yeah. And I pass it to, oh my God, where's the list of names? Constance. Is Constance still here? Okay, so after Constance is Erin.
She might have caught her flight finally.
Okay. Is Erin still here?
Yeah.
There you are. Okay.
What do you like to dream for? I think I want to dream forward. I don't know why I wasn't thinking about this whole time. I was just listening to y'all and like learning, but dream forward. Like, I guess like what Dean said, like, I just want folks to have like, and what everyone is like, well, a few folks have named, just like having land. Like, I learned that from Dean. Like, it's just like, like when one day, like they asked that question of like, what would you do if you had your own land and you didn't have to work to live? And like, you know, I think that question really changed my life. And I think that is so important. And so that's what I want to dream for, is that we all have, I guess we all find the place in the land that we want to like live and thrive on, with the community that we want to live and thrive with ultimately. And we feel fulfilled in that, in whatever way that looks like. Whether that be like a chosen community, whether that be a community that shares similar identities to you, whether that just be a community that you all like were fated to be a part of. And I think just like the seeds that are planted right now are really that need to be planted in order for that vision to come to fruition is for us to be really thinking about liberation and keeping our hearts and our heart's eye and mind's eye on liberation through this, and not getting caught up with like the white man's future. Like, I feel like the white folks are going to go through their own hell, right? Like, they ultimately built their heaven on top of our hell, right? And like karma, and like what Martin Luther King said at some point, like the moral arc of the universe always bends towards justice. Like, that justice means that they are now going to go into the hell that they created. And we're going to go into the heaven that we've been creating. And it's important for us not to get caught up in their shit, like, and in their suffering. Like, I think that like they're going to want to bring us down and be like, oh, we're all suffering together. The world is ending for all of us. And really the world is just ending for them and for their ideas and for their dumb bullshit. And so I just really hope that we continue to like stay rooted in our own liberation and the shit that's going on in our community, and letting them do their fucking shit. But I think that like in terms of the ancestor I want to be, and the ancestor that I am, like the reason why I call myself Fairy God's Dad is because ultimately, like when I was dreaming, when I was like exploring my radical imagination as a child, like I didn't see a lot of like situations where Black folks, besides like Brandy and Cinderella, which was the best movie ever, got to see their fairy godparent. They never got someone to come into their reality and be like, you can do whatever the fuck you want, just make this wish. And because you're so like you're that special, like interdimensionally, I'm gonna come and change the world. Like reality will bend to your will. Like you're that powerful. Like no one, like I didn't have a lot of models of that. And as an artist and as an organizer and as an ancestor, I want to create spaces where folks are able to access their dreams and their hopes and their heart's highest desires. And so I just want to create space for folks, and especially honestly like young queer folks, Black and brown queer folks, to connect with each other and to like grow into the leaders we want to be. Like that's really the work that I want to be doing in community, is like supporting young queer folks and learning who they are as leaders and as magical beings, and like becoming those beings together. Because we like, again, that future requires community, like someone said. And so that's the ancestry that I am. It's like really a raft. Like when folks feel like they don't have community, when they feel like they're like ascending alone or their journey requires them to be isolated, like a reminder that they can grow in community, and that community, and like in deep in all of our hearts, we want to be together in this time, even if sometimes like our trauma or our pain doesn't allow us to. So yeah, that's who I'm gonna be, and that's who I am. And so that's that. And I'll pass it to Chris.
Hey everyone, my ancestor, or what I want to be, just to connect with people about these ideas. I'm an artist who writes poetry about like being Black and queer, as well as HIV positive since birth. I'm also like aromantic and asexual. Like aromantics are generally people like not interested in relationships, and asexuals, some of them are sex repulsed. So like I write about all of those identities, and I drop all of my social media. I have a blog post that talks about my experience with being Black and queer. and about being HIV positive since birth. It's a really good read. I love like reading my work like over again and also listening to my poems because I feel like I'm the only one out there in the world that talks about these ideas. So it's like nice to like tell people about these ideas and like connect with people. I think that's what I want to bring to the world, just being more open and telling my story and saving lives.
Marlon.
My dream forward. My dream forward has been for a while to just be Marlon and not be that black man or, you know, this descriptor of who I am, and just be Marlon. That, you know, yeah. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated. I want to see us live a less complicated, less busy life, you know, where all of us are, you know, our needs are met and we're striving for those wants. And yeah, it's a lot less stress and pressure in life. And, you know, it is much of a fairy tale because we're nowhere near that, but that is my dream, to just be Marlon. What do I imagine for present and future ancestors? I don't know. I have to think about that one. I wasn't ready for that one. What seeds do we plant now? I would say it's important for us to talk about race and racism with our kids as early as possible, so that it's not this scary boogeyman kind of thing that we see many adults wrestle with today. If you ever watch kids, you know, we had the honor of having an 18-month-year-old, 20-month-old, a little baby in our house. And we were on a ferry one day and he just ran up to this white man, you know, and, you know, it's already tense time, but ran up to this white man who was sitting, you know, on the ferry with no filter, no concern for his safety. He just saw another human and wanted to be held by this human. And I'm like, what happened? Where did that go? How have we gotten here? And then I, of course, I reflect on how we got here. But, you know, if we can talk about ending this with our kids so that they don't have to live what we're experiencing now, and they can have more vulnerable, more honest conversations about interrupting racism when they get older, that's the seed I want to plant. It's the tools that our kids are going to need in order to really eradicate racism, and then be able to address the other types of oppression that this world experiences. When we eradicate racism, we can eradicate sexism. We can eradicate, you know, the way people are differently able and the barriers that exist that have been erected. So that's the seed that I would like to plant. Oh, what kind of what kind of ancestors do I see in myself? That's interesting. I would just want to be the type of ancestor that inspires folks to live their best life, you know, to not take themselves for granted, and to really live out their folks' full potential. You know, oftentimes the society and environments we're around don't allow us to be our full selves. And I would like to see folks really, embrace their whole selves and do everything that they want to do, before they get to 45, like myself. Do some things before you get to 45. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. This is such a different circle because I'm like, I want to make a lot of noise and like be in everybody's faces like, yes, that thing. So thank you all for being your full selves as much as possible in the circle. And want to thank you for being soft and tender and vulnerable with all of your identities. When I see the faces here and the faces that couldn't make it as well, I think of the beauty of who we are here in Seattle and beyond. Like, we are beautiful, we are amazing, we are powerful, right? And that's not completely seen. And as much as we can, that's the dream, what we're creating in this bubble on this Millennium Falcon, we can create in the world. So I just want to thank you for being part of my community and, being open to coming into this circle and telling your truths to each other and to the world. And to close us out, I think Ebo is still here to give us a closing poem if they want to. If not, that's totally fine. Garfield had to head out. Ebo, are you able to give us a poem? Or Marlon, are you able to lead us in a song? I was private chatting you, but y'all were ignoring me. So
sorry, I was sort of using it as a listening device versus watching, if that's okay. So, but I can totally read a poem. I didn't realize that I was going to do that.
You don't have to. I could do it. Doing. You were cooking. It was fine.
Yeah, I was wearing my Tupac apron and making a crawfish etouffee. So that's what I was doing.
Are you sharing libations with the community?
I mean, if y'all could get to Tallulah like after I clean my apartment, then maybe. But that might take a while. But yeah. So can y'all still hear me when it's like this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to open something. Yeah. So I was totally listening. It was really exciting to hear. It was really exciting to hear Black folks talk about the future, just in all that's happening, and just sort of the I don't know, there's a lot of as somebody with very high anxiety and many times social anxiety, it's just so hard to hear all of the different ways in which we're failing over and over and over again, and not hear about what we're capable of and where we're going. So it was really, so thank you to everyone who was sharing. That was really great too. It was rejuvenating to hear the ways in which y'all see that. Yeah. So in about 50 years, the Arctic will be about room temperature. All of us in this Zoom room, if we survive, will don gas masks and hazmat suits that only some of us will somehow make fashionable. My hometown, the City of Angels, could be the modern day Atlantis. My childhood homes under the sea. The Hollywood stars become precious to us once again as artifacts of a time that ceased to exist. Today, our global lungs are on fire because of us. The US president is the literal Antichrist, the apocalypse himself. We kill women because of their genitals on a very regular basis. We treat children the same way we treat rapists because of where their parents are from. The Arctic is barely intact. Strawberries are an endangered fruit. The water is getting closer and closer, and the earth is quaking with rage. We are at the end of our time here. So what is it that you're doing? Are you still trying to live a dream that someone else dreamed for you? Are you still trying to make your mother happy with your life choices? Any minute now, she won't be concerned with your outfit. She'll be concerned that it's getting a lot hotter than it used to. Are you still sitting silent because you're afraid of what people think? Afraid of being the different that you already are, have always been? Are you still letting fear dress you up in the morning? Are you sitting here wasting the 11th hour watching the mushroom clouds in the distance while we sit on the rooftops sipping rosé and hashtag calling it self-care? How are we actually caring for yourself? Are you pretending the world around you is not slowly disappearing and writing us out of the script? Are you still set on a path as if this is not all happening? Are you in love with your outcome? Are you settling for good enough? I have no time to wait to see if this was maybe just a terrible joke. I have a whole world to see, so many strawberries to savor, so many fights to fight, people to meet, their stories to carve on my bones like a wishing tree. Sure, I have the privilege of having a mother, but the life she gave me is the life I am choosing to live like it's my own, like I have no life to give another, to give away freely as if to prove it is so unworthy that I can just offer it up like I've got life to spare. The world is coming to an end. So why are we resigning to our death so early? I refuse to accept that it is only in death that we can know peace. I refuse to accept that this is what we have to endure until the end. Thank you all very much for listening, for having me.
Thank you so much, everybody. We are going to be closing out with our fairy God person. Yes, your fairy God person and mine as well, that we know and love. So let's dance our way out into abundance in this moment and into the future.
Can I make a quick announcement?
Yes.
So I run a weekly Black Zoom chat for queer and trans individuals. Okay. So if any of you are interested in that, and we'll sometimes like play online games. I'm trying to schedule one so that we can do a collective streaming of a movie. Yeah, sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's bi-weekly if people are like a little restless and they want to like connect. But they happen pretty consistently and they've been happening for like 2 months. So if anyone's interested in that, you can just hit me up and I'll add you to the group I run it through. And then that's where I send out like notices of when it's up and running and what times and whatnot. So.
Thank you so much. I totally forgot to plug Alphabet Alliance of Color has a mentor and mentee program. Please contact us. It's all of the postings are all over our Facebook, and we extended the deadline to this Friday, but it's the last call. And we have three new staff members, so that's exciting. Woo, woo. And if people have more resources, we'll continue to put them inside of the chat. And thank you, Callisto from the audience, sharing some of your stories as a Black, queer, trans person. I appreciate you and all your knowledge as well. Part of Queer the Land. Uh-oh. Where did my DJ go? Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
We love you.
Don't worry, baby. I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry. Oh, baby, ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough. You get to you. I set you free. I go for you always. They all I think about. I will never be broken somewhere sometime. Oh, baby, ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough. You get to you, baby. Oh, no, if you ever need, I'll be there on the road. The blood still burning, the clock still turning, the voice keep one while I ask, keep working the DJs on my team. I'm turning the DJs on my team. Then I get to go DJ. Go DJ. 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 Turn up, ass low. Down on the dance floor, so long as you can tell me my hands go. I'm dancing, I'm like, yo, we can spend on. All me, take me where you want from. Maybe I can show you what I'm made of. Yeah, baby, I can pass it on the get close. But maybe I ain't got no time to pick up, look. I don't think you can get my body in it. Somebody tell me what I'm talking. Oh, it's so pass it to the left, and she brought it back, and then the blood still burning, the clock still turning, the noise keep one on my ass, keep cooking the DJs on my team. I'm serving the DJs on my team. Then I need to go DJ. Go DJ. Then I need to go DJ. Go DJ. Then I need to go DJ. Go DJ. Then I need to go DJ. When you lose, you gotta take it to the top of life. If you feel lonely, come and just go. Get into the top of life. I like the party now. Living right. Ready to just get tired. And get on the night. Living in love, repeat. Then the love and never repeat. It's my life, 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 need some joy with it. Get into the party life. If you must love, you only got yourself to find. Get into the party life. I like the party life. Living right. Pretty girls just to get down.
Right on, Luca.
Everybody for wisdom and beautiful blackness, and thank you, Lulu, for bringing us together and DJ. I love your DJ. Thank you.
Hi, Lucia.
Bye.
Hello.
Oh, I'm gonna head out too. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything. Amazing.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for dancing. Know your word. Oh, it's fine. And we can just chill. Most of the attendees are heading out. I'm like, I want to stay forever. Like Aaron, yeah, we can just chat.
Showed up? What?
Look at Michael. What? Oh, there's Michael's voice in his mic, the good mic.
Like, what? Fancy mic.
Good views. I think he might see this.
Yeah, no.
Why can't we?
Thank y'all. I'm gonna dip out. I've been on Zooms all day.
Thank you, Marlon. And I want to join the choir. I'm not.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm gonna get you connected.
I want to sing.